taking a deep dive into the business. It's the Turn Podcast, a golf business and experience podcast powered by Troon.
It's the Turn. I'm Julia, here with Chris Strauss. Again, we missed you the last few episodes.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that, but you all did a great job of holding down the fort, covered some awesome topics, and I know it was really entertaining and educational at the same time. And that's what this podcast, I think, is going to be as well, too. And you and I both can attest to the fact that it's so awesome to work for an international company. And I know when our international colleagues hop on our Tuesday sales and marketing calls or have a chance to tell their stories, I know it's always just interesting and captivating.
Totally. I love living vicariously through our international people, two of which are with us today. We've got Andy Stockinger, who's GM of Madinaty Golf Course in Cairo, Egypt. And then we've got Chris Geraghty, who is at Vattanac Golf Resort in Cambodia. I had to practice my pronunciation of both of those, so sorry if it took me so long. Welcome, gentlemen.
I think you did a great job, but they can be the judge of that.
I'm nervous.
I couldn't have got it better, but no, great to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity and the platform to sort of share our experiences.
Yeah, very excited about it.
So we can tell, Chris Geraghty, you are from north of England. We can kind of a giveaway with your accent. Andy, not so much with you, but I do sense a Midwestern accent, and I wasn't surprised to find out you're from Duluth, Minnesota.
Yes, I've kind of lost the Minnesota-esque of it.
Can we start with you, Andy? Like, how did your journey go from Duluth, Minnesota to traveling the world?
It's been a wild adventure so far. I went to school for hospitality and tourism, restaurant management, and then I actually went to New York for an internship. So I worked at a high-end private country club out on Long Island, and that's where
you met DJ Flanders, right?
Yeah, and that's where I met you on your first day.
I know. See, Chris, I was meant to be on the international team.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We'll take it any day. So the club actually wasn't with Troon at the time, and I was running the club by myself. The board of governors went through a lot of who do we want as a GM, this and that, back and forth. They said, who do you want to work for, Troon or XYZ? And I said Troon. And then I actually was part of the interview process when DJ Flanders came on board. So then I worked underneath him for a little over 3 years. So then I moved to California after that, and then I retired for about 2.5 years in England to have my first baby with my wife. And then DJ called me and asked me if I wanted to come out of retirement. And I said, yes. And he said, I have a place in Bangalore for you. And I said, yeah, sure, sounds good. He goes, that's India, Andy. And I said, yes, I have a globe. So we did India for 4 years. We've just been moving around the globe. So India for 4, and then Costa Rica. And Julia, you came to visit us there as well. And then recently I've moved to Cairo, Egypt. So it's been quite the adventure.
So cool. So you went from the sands of Costa Rica on the beach to the sands of Egypt and the pyramids.
Yes, completely opposite.
Wow, totally opposite. Chris Geraghty, what about your path?
Well, I very much like Andy, actually. I left home for 6 months, and 15 years later have had no sign of ever going back. So I was living in Egypt, doing as Andy was, like an internship or so on. I joined Troon in 2016 to lead the Alegria in Cairo, which is another property on the other side of the city from Madinaty, where Andy is now. And then joined the team at the Royal Golf Club Bahrain in 2018, spent 4 years there, and then fortunate enough to have the opportunity to move to Southeast Asia and to lead Vattanac Golf Resort, which is an incredible property. It's been an incredible journey with Troon, and I'm so thankful and happy to have had those opportunities afforded to me.
Royal Golf Club in Bahrain just hosted a DP World Tour event, and I can tell you that golf course, designed by Colin Montgomery, a Team Troon member, looked pretty stunning on the global television broadcast.
Yes, yeah. Jamie Faulkner, the superintendent, was working during my time there actually as assistant superintendent to William Evans, who was a long-term Troon superintendent, and yeah, it was a lot of work bringing. Like we had to bring the architect back to the table to modify the course in some places, plus get the tourism involved to sort of support on the expenses. There was a lot of work went into bringing that to Bahrain, and really proud of the team there for kicking the goal, making it a success, and to continue that plan.
Jamie was with me in India as well. He was at Karnataka Golf Association, so he's done really well.
Awesome. Well,
wow. We all know each other, right?
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah, I know when I traveled to our international team in Abu Dhabi and Dubai in 2016, what really struck me is how we were a big company, but then you have a small company culture when you're abroad, like to your point, it's like everyone's like a family.
Yeah, I think we kind of have to rely on each other it doesn't matter if, Chris is 5-6 hours ahead of me. If I have an issue or I needs help with whatever it may be, he's like the first person I pick up the phone to call to. Even if I've had a bad day, I was like, hey, Chris, you got an hour to let me scream at you? He's like, yeah, of course.
So there's over 30,000 golf courses in the world. And so the opportunities to work internationally is vast. The world is your proverbial oyster, if you will. What do you say some of the best things about working abroad and getting to experience some of these new countries and cultures that you've been to?
Wow, what a great question. For me personally, being international has been such an education for me. I left home as a British guy, probably a bit closed-minded, only knew the British way of doing things and so on. And to see the world and to experience the different cultural aspects of life, let's say, has been a real education. Like I grew up as a Roman Catholic in the UK with like Christmas being our main holiday and so on. And you think of the world as full of different people and different cultures, and everyone does things in such strange ways. But when you peel it back, we're all very much the same. Like Christmas time, for me, it's about spending time with my loved ones, giving to charity, appreciating people with small gifts, gestures, etc. My time in the Middle East, you celebrate Ramadan and Eid, and what's it about? It's about spending time with loved ones and families and giving to charity and appreciating people you care about with small gifts, etc. Now, living in Southeast Asia, it's a Buddhist country, and it's a very warm, hospitable culture, and Chumben is the biggest holiday. And what's it about? Spending time with family, giving to those less fortunate, and appreciating people through small gifts, So when you peel back the different languages maybe, or the different sort of it's outside layer of the culture that maybe makes people think, whoa, we're so different. When you peel that back and you learn about it, you realize there's like 8 billion people on this earth, and we're all probably very similar at the end of the day. We probably got much more in common than we might think if I was still that close-minded 25-year-old from the north of the UK. So for me, like the education of spending time abroad has been just something I'm so pleased and so proud of actually having and being afforded the opportunity to have.
What about you, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I completely echo what Chris has said. The culture and just the different ways to go about your day. Even I think I've raised I have a small family that has joined me throughout this crazy career. When we moved back to England, my daughter was 2.5, and then we decided to move to India. My wife Kate was 8 months pregnant with our second, and it was kind of an eye-opening experience for all of us. It's been just amazing. I think India was difficult bringing up a child where you're used to being able to go to Sainsbury's, Tesco. I don't know any grocery stores in the US, sorry. But getting everything you need, whereas, we're in India, we have to go to 5 different places we had a driver because you weren't allowed to drive. I've got a 2-month-old that needs formula or this or that, and it's crazy. But we take it all in, and we're like, this is all these different little colors and everything they get to experience, going to a different school. Freya came home one day saying, "Damn it," and I was like, I try not to use curse words in the house. Try. And I went to her teacher, and she's like, "No, damn it, yo means no or stop in Korean or something." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, of course, my child speaks Korean. I can barely speak English." So all these little things that happen, and it's not just happening to me; it's happening to my kids and my wife, and it's just so cool to see. My wife has a really, really cool picture of both my girls putting their hands up against the car or van window, and you see the backs of them, but then you see the front of this little Indian child putting their hand up against out of a tuk-tuk. And it's just like, that was like the aha, well, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, raising our children and going through all these different things. So I think that is just what we love. I'm getting chills. I don't know if it's cold outside, but
we are too.
And it's just like every country we've gone to, they get to experience all these different things. And now here in Egypt, it's even more and more. And they'll just continue to thrive and figure out their path, and whatever they want to do, they can do. I hope I win the lottery and they can just hang out with me the rest of my life. But someday they'll take their own path and figure it out. And for me, that'll break my heart, but then I'll just follow them wherever they go. So
I think what's cool about Troon is that not only can you have a lifelong career with the company, you can do it internationally. And I really loved what you said, Andy, about I had a choice. Do I want to work for Troon, or do I want to go with this other company? And you chose Troon. And, it's created all of this adventure for you. Kris, what about you? Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, definitely. So when I first joined Troon, Mark Czapleski was heading up the international division, and I flew over to Dubai to meet Mark before he'd agreed to hire me in the position. Basically, I mean, it was like a bit of a 3-day trial by fire. We went everywhere, and so on. But it was an extremely steep but enjoyable learning curve at the beginning. But now I've had three facilities I've worked at for Troon. I've led 3 facilities for Troon. Like, I don't see myself anywhere else now, to be honest. I mean, like Andy said before, to have a circle of people that I can just pick up the phone, or I can flick a 2-line email across to, and the answer is there the same day. To have DJ in the office who I can just bounce things off, and DJ has, since I went to my first Troon conference back in 2022 and met some of the executive team, like Kris, like Julia, yourself, and it's so easy. Like Ricardo in the Miami office is sending me all these documents I need for like handing over our clubhouse, which will open next year, and so on. Like, just that network of resources that we have, and yeah, we still have internationally, thankfully, is amazing. Like, I couldn't imagine being a standalone GM and just responsible, accountable, having everything on my shoulders all the time, when I've got the backing and support I have in the field from people like you who head up our offices, and people like Mark and DJ who headed up the international.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned Ricardo, our friend who is Portuguese, works out of the Florida office, and he does a lot of work for us in Central America as well. So it's like we've even got the international people in this, stateside helping us out. Andy, I'm curious if an associate comes to you and says, I've been working here in Omaha and I'm thinking about wanting to go to another country. What would you say to them?
First, I would tell them to do it because it's amazing. And there's challenges everywhere where we live, and I think Kris can attest to that as well. And there's challenges back in the States. So my biggest culture shock that I've ever experienced, I didn't leave the US. I moved from New York to Northern California, And that was the biggest culture shock I've ever had in my entire life. And then moving to all these other countries, it's the challenge, I guess, would be day-to-day things like going to the grocery store and trying to find certain things that you want, and you can't. So then you find something that replaces those. I think the challenges that happen on a day-to-day basis within my professional life is kind of why I'm doing this. So I enjoy those challenges. Language is always a barrier for me. I'm not very good with language. I took Spanish for 2 years in high school and failed miserably. And then I moved to Costa Rica and I had to learn as much Spanish as possible, and I failed miserably. And now I'm here in Cairo and Arabic, and I'm picking up a lot more Arabic than I did with Spanish, which is strange. Even my kids comment on it. They're like, "Whoa, you're much better at Arabic than you were with Spanish, Dad." And I'm like, I wasn't that bad. But yeah, I think the language is always a barrier, but there's always someone there that can help you and guide you through it. In India, I had a driver named Patel who was phenomenal. He spoke like 7 different languages, most of them Indian, right, or Hindi, and all these other things. But each little area has their own dialect. So we'd be going somewhere and he'd help me out. In Costa Rica, I had Carlos, and you met Carlos. He's like a brother to me. And then here I have my golf ops manager is Ashraf. Everywhere I go, I always have someone that can help me get through those barriers or those challenges I have locally. But to tell someone who is looking to come to Troon International and be part of our team, yeah, it's if you've got the ability to and you feel like you want to, then just take that leap, because it's done wonders for my career and me being a manager to adjust to all these different cultures and scenarios that happen within the confines of all these different places. It's pretty spectacular. So yeah, just do it.
Just do it. Do you say the same thing, Chris, to people?
I would completely agree. For me, the hardest thing was the decision initially. I had to stay abroad, but yeah, I wouldn't now. If I had the last sort of 15 years back or so, I wouldn't think twice. I wouldn't put that second bit of doubt in my mind. Like Andy, I actually lived in Egypt for 8.5 years, so my Arabic got scarily good. I wouldn't say I'm fluent, but I'd be pretty close. Professionally proficient, maybe is how I would word it. But yeah, my advice to anyone thinking about an international move, if that opportunity comes, like, home is always there. Home is always there. I can be home in 24 hours if needed. Touch wood, that doesn't need to happen, but I can be home in 24 hours. Home is always there. Just go for it.
Yeah. DJ actually said something that's always stuck with me. And he said, the world's a small place. You need to see it. So I was like, yeah, I guess so. And then every time I have to tell the girls, oh, we're moving, they're like, oh, I know, the world's a small place, Dad. We got to see it. I'm like, yeah, exactly.
Love it. What the other thing that struck me that was interesting when our international teams was that our employee base, associate base was so diverse. You know, in the States, you sit at a table and it's, where are you from? I'm from California. I'm from Minnesota. I'm from Iowa. And there you're sitting at a table and it's, oh, I'm from India. I'm from the Philippines. I'm from the UK. I'm from Egypt. And it's interesting, even though all the associates come from all these different diverse backgrounds, I feel like our leaders there seem to do an amazing job with galvanizing the team, and the team has such great pride in working for the club and working for Troon. And in some cases, their paychecks might not even be coming from Troon technically, so to speak. So how do you create that pride of workmanship? How do you create that the company pride, that club pride at your clubs that you lead? And what advice would you give to other leaders to do the same?
Chris, why don't you take that one?
Thank you. That's an amazing question, and that's one that I don't know. There's so many different ways to answer that. For me personally, I can speak from personal experience. Like, I to get buy-in, like a little bit different. In Egypt, I was one expatriate manager, let's say, and the entire rest of the company was Egyptian nationals. In Bahrain, it was very much what you described, Chris. We had all nationalities: Indian, Philippines, Bangladesh, South Africa, UK, USA. It was extremely diverse. Here in Cambodia, it's a little bit similar. We've got, obviously, the bulk of our staff is the Cambodian national people, and a small number of expat managers. But the one thing that has remained the same for me wherever I've gone, in all those three teams, leaning on the basic or your leadership behaviors, like leading with authenticity, like following through, being conscientiously kind, and leaning on basically our Troon guiding principles has been what's empowered me to lead and get the buy-in of those teams. And I'm very fortunate to have inherited teams which have been amazing, and they've had that passion from the beginning. They've had that sort of pride from the beginning, and I'm really lucky to have just had to sort of lead them forward. I've not had to build a team from zero. But yeah, working for Troon internationally, like since coming to the conference last year, I've really seen much more how proud everyone is of the brand, how proud everyone is of the best practices and so on. And it's now, like, since seeing that in person, it's much more about communicating that to the teams, because otherwise, without us communicating it and driving it, they're just not going to see it, they're not going to hear it, they're not going to know about it. So
Yeah, and I think trust is the one thing that drives the international teams. And every few years you might have a new role and you have a new team, and so not only are you in a new role, they have a new leader, and you need to build that trust with them that you are going to do what you say and you are going to help them with their careers and make sure that they have that stable income and show them and teach them. And I was always at that. We were all at that stage at our point in life, trying to get better and better and better. And my time in New York, it was very strange. I was an intern, and then the financial crash hit. So I was a terrible intern. I was like a busboy. I'd be putting lemons on. It was supposed to be an iced tea, and it was an iced coffee, and I'd get yelled at, and I just was not very good at what I was doing. And then I became a restaurant manager, and then I became assistant general manager, and then I became the interim GM. And this was all in like a year's time, from me being a terrible busboy to me being an interim GM, running a company that I should not have been running. And then I think working underneath DJ and understanding what Troon is all about, and then taking what that situation that I was in, trying to learn who I was and how to be a manager and be the best I can be, and then using that with the team that I've had. And I tell them stories in the past, like someone will have a bad day. I'm like, yeah, you want to hear a bad day? This happened to me once. And then I tell them, and they're like, yeah, my day wasn't that bad. I was like, yeah, exactly. Chris has mentioned the Troon conference, and last year was the first time I've ever, 2022, right? Was when we all went, and that was the first time I've ever been. And I've heard amazing things for my entire time being with Troon, and I'd never had the opportunity. I finally had the opportunity, and to be there was probably one of the best experiences I've had with Troon.
So speaking of good days and bad days, running a club, the day-to-day business of running a club, at its core, do you think it's any different in Cambodia or Cairo than it is stateside?
Fundamentally, I don't think the business changes. Like the basic business fundamentals don't change. I think how we navigate those problems really changes. How we communicate to our owners, like I've had to communicate to 3 different owners 3 completely different ways. I've had to communicate to my teams completely different ways. Like in Cambodia, for example, it's like just culturally a no to raise your voice at all. Like raising your voice is the worst, like one of the worst things you could possibly do. So even negative feedback should be given in, or negative feed forward, whatever you want to call it, should be given in a very gentle, soft way. So I think the basic fundamentals don't change, but the way in which you handle issues, the way in which you deal with issues as they arise, definitely changes from place to place.
Yeah, I agree,
Interesting.
and I think that's what makes us better managers, because we have the ability to adjust to whatever situations we're in. My time in India compared to Costa Rica compared now to Egypt, like Kris said, managing our owners and our different teams completely different ways, and the sizes of our teams as well. I mean, I think I had 2 clubs in India, so there was like 900 associates. Costa Rica I had 150. Egypt I have 135. So I've got, in India I had like 900 people following me around, like making sure I was, it was wild. But so that's a bit different too. But no, I think it's the same. It's just adjusting your management style to your audience and your team.
Sometimes internationally, when we open a golf course, we are truly the first golf course in that market, that region, sometimes even in that country. Yeah. And we have to grow the game. So what are some of the things that you've seen in your international travels on the spirit of growing the game of golf as you manage a club?
Right.
Go ahead, Kris.
I mean, Andy will also, I hope Andy will have seen this as well. Like some of the work they did in Egypt, honestly, was amazing. Like we used to do at one of the places we used to do free golf lessons every Saturday, and we'd have just rows of kids just hitting balls. We'd have 3 or 4 of us as coaches trying to handle it and so on. And the Golf Federation were very active with like junior tournaments for different age groups and so on. But all in all, you're right. We actually get the opportunity in a lot of markets to define the game of golf and to show people what the game of golf is and what it's all about, and ensuring that kids have access, families have access. So the Troon Family Golf Month is such a big thing. Here in Cambodia, we have a 2-gen tournament, which is father-son, let's call it, or mother-daughter, etc. 2 generations from the same family. So initiatives like just making the game accessible, getting into schools. So with the plastic clubs and Velcro balls, getting into the schools in all these places has been a big part of every place I've been to. But accessibility and making golf a family activity, which through Troon Junior Club and Troon Family Golf are things we have in place. And those are the big things I've seen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the snag golf kits have been an eye opener for a lot of the youth here in Egypt. So we go to schools and bring those, and really try to get them to understand that it's not an elitist sport and that everyone can play it, and make it fun for them. Just like I've tried to do with my children as well. Hey guys, let's go and play. We don't have to play everything. We'll just play a few holes, do this, whatever. And just really try to engage not just the youth, but the females as well. So we just signed, Kris, I don't know if you signed it as well, but with the RNA from the Middle East that we're trying to help promote females and girls golfing in our countries as well. So really to try to get it to grow in that gender. The one thing I've seen, I think that works the best is, like Kris said, get the family involved. And in India, I think golf might be the fastest growing sport now. I mean, cricket is there, but it's massive right now. And we went from 106 members to 460 in the time that I was there. And we had 1 club. And then I think when I left, we have like 7 maybe now there. Some of them are different agreements where we just do agronomy. We're still managing the golf aspect. So it's growing well there. In Costa Rica, not a lot of golfers. Tourism, yes, but still not a lot of locals golfing. But we did some night golf, which was really, really interesting with big targets. And every time you'd hit the ball against the target, some song would play and this and that, and getting the F&B components into it. And that really drove our junior clinics, because they'd come out at night and play, and then they'd go, oh, can we do it during the day? And so then it would just drive, which I think is fantastic. But yeah.
Awesome. What's some of the funniest things you've seen abroad?
Oh man, you got to keep it PG. I think driving is quite intense in everywhere I've worked. India, I had a driver, so I didn't have to worry about that. But I was still a rider. Traffic would stop for snakes to pass. In India, the cow is seen as a holy being, so you'd have to be very careful on the roads, and cows would come by, and if you hit a cow, you're in big trouble. But yeah, the amount of people that are in the vehicles abroad, or during certain times of the year, I'd see scooters go by with goats and sheep and things like that, and they're bringing them to the butcher for like Eid and things like that. Costa Rica, the roads were normal, but when I would pick up one of the VPs or one of our representatives from the Florida office, we'd always take them the back way, which was called the Monkey Trail, and there was a river that ran through it. And I think I picked up Zach once with Carlos, and Carlos was driving, of course. He didn't trust me driving. And we drove through a river, and Zach was like, what are you guys doing to me? Like, are we going to die? And the water was like coming up to the window, and he was freaking out. And so we knew we were safe. It's fine. But to have him experience that was pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean, we see a lot of weird and wonderful things. I'm sure Kris has seen quite a bit as well.
Yeah, there's definitely differing attitudes to road safety and driving styles and so on. And Cairo, especially, is a city of 30 million people, so it's very hectic to get across town and so on. Traffic is always there. Yeah, I think so. Some of those are the funniest. There was one, and this is another reason why Troon is so valuable, I guess. Internationally, we were doing one of our kids clinics that we spoke about earlier on a Saturday afternoon, and it's at 4 o'clock. At 3:45, I went to the driving range to check that the setup was done and everything was ready, and there was no golf balls on the driving range. And I asked the range attendant, hey, where are the golf balls? And he said, they're there, they're on the driving range. And they'd all been hit that morning because we'd had a busy tournament that morning. And I said, yeah, but you need to collect them. And he said, no, if I collect them, the guests will just hit them, and then I'll have to collect them again. So if I just leave them to the end of the day, I only have to do it once. And I said, no, but that's the point. I need those balls for the children to play golf, right? And therein lies, I think, some of the basic things that go missing if a company like Troon is not overseeing an operation. I mean, but yeah, that I've seen. I think 15 people in/on a car going down the highway, like people on the bonnet, 4 people in the boot, 4 people on the back seats, 3 sitting on the passenger seats. Like, yeah, I think living day to day, there's different approaches to safety internationally, definitely.
One of the benefits that people say of working abroad is you get paid to travel. Have either of you taken advantage of your international location to see more of that part of the world?
Definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah. Everywhere we've lived, we've tried to stay with. We see everything we possibly can in the country that we're living in, but then we're so close to everything else. So I mean, my kids have been to more countries than most adults. I just got Freya's new passport last week because she ran out of pages for the 3rd time.
Wow.
So not a lot of kids get to do that, and they've seen the Great Pyramids, they've seen the Taj Mahal, We've gone to Sri Lanka, the Maldives, all over Europe. So they've seen it all. They have yet to see snow. So they're really, and growing up in Minnesota.
I know this from a man who grew up in Minnesota.
Yeah, I'll buy them a snow cone, but no. So I think we're going to try to get to Lapland one of these days and see some snow. Traveling is not the reason I'm doing this, but like you said, the world's a small place and we need to see it. So having that advantage to being so close to so many things, and airfare, I feel on this side of the world is much more reasonable than in the U.S. trying to fly somewhere, because you fly from state to state and you drop hundreds and hundreds of dollars, whereas I can fly back to England through Ryanair right now for like $60. So
Wow.
and everywhere you go is like, oh, it's $100, it's this, it's that. So it's like, why not? Why not take advantage of that?
What's one of the more interesting people you've met?
Interesting. I've been fortunate enough to meet royalty country leaders. I've met the former Prime Minister of Cambodia on many occasions. Met some cricket stars, some football stars, etc. But I think generally politicians and whatnot would be the most interesting I've come across.
What about most unusual food, Kris?
Oh, I am a big foodie. You can only see to hear, but you can't tell maybe by the camera. But I do like a meal or two. I've very much tried the different foods in different parts of the world. The Cambodian food is some of the best food I've ever eaten. The Egyptian breakfast is some of the best breakfast I've ever eaten. Yeah, the food, the travel, again, like Andy, the travel isn't the reason I'm international, but the experiences definitely is, and the food is a big part of that for me. Yeah.
I'm also a foodie, and like Kris said, you can only see from here down, and you're welcome. But living in India, you get to like train your palate for different spice levels, and my spice level is pretty high. I can handle quite a bit. Every year when my kids have their birthday, they get to pick out where they want to eat, and everywhere we lived, it's always been Indian. So my daughter just turned 8 a few days ago, and I said, oh, where are we going for dinner? And she's like, oh, we're going for Indian. I'm like, again? And like they just stick with Indian food, and I don't know if it's because she was 2 months old when she moved there or what, but they absolutely love it. I also like to try street food on the carts and things like that. Some are fantastic, and some make me want to feel like I'm gonna die. But it's there, so I want to try it, and it's interesting. But no, that's one of the good things too.
What would you say, Kris? We'll start with you. Your best advice to another operator in another part of the world, based on what you've learned internationally?
Oh, that's a tough one. My best piece of advice, I think, I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I think embrace everything. Like for me, we've done what people like might consider strange things. Like I've gone and done it. I've been to pagodas for Buddhist celebrations. I've been to mosques for Muslim celebrations. I've been everywhere for everything. And once I've been in a country, I've thrown myself into that, and I've made sure I want to experience that. I want to see what this is all about, and I want to learn from this. And I think that's the thing, would be don't stop learning, whether it's in work, whether it's in the office or at the facility, or whether it's out in your personal life. I would just say don't stop learning, don't stop taking in all of those experiences.
That's awesome.
Definitely. Andy?
Yeah. I would say don't pass up any opportunity. With the company that we have and the size and where we're headed, there are so many opportunities. And even if you don't want to, come internationally, move to a different state, try something new, take that first step that way. And like I said, culture shock from Long Island, New York to San Jose, California blew my mind. And now it's like I feel like I can do anything.
I love that. And I love the advice DJ gave you. I think we should use that as a HR brand anthem, Julia, in terms of
absolutely
the world being a small place. Go see it. So
yeah,
especially
I'm going to put it on a t-shirt instead of selling it.
I don't know. I'm thinking I'm also drawn to like maybe hashtag bad busboy, Andy. I keep going back to that.
I still know the woman that yelled at me for she ordered an iced coffee and I gave it to her and I saw everyone else putting lemons on things and I put a lemon on it and she's like, "What's the lemon for?" And I was like, "Decoration, lady. I don't know. I just got here. I'm from Minnesota."
Maybe you got promoted because they just needed you off the floor, you know.
It could have been. Definitely.
Well, Chris Geraghty would have yelled at you in a low, soft voice.
Yes.
So.
It would have been feed forward. There's no feedback. It would have been feed forward. It would all be forward thinking.
Oh,
yeah.
That's your hashtag, Chris. Feed forward.
Feed forward. Yeah.
Love it. Well, we appreciate.
He gets feed forward, and I get bad busboy.
You get bad busboy. I've worked with you too much, Andy.
Oh man. Excellent.
We appreciate the work that you two are doing, the work that your teams are doing, everything you're doing to drive results for our courses, our clients, and then to fly the Troon flag, and no matter where the country is that you're in. And so we thank you so much for your relentless dedication and being passionately unified along the way. Message to all out there: there's a lot of great opportunities. Go to trooncareers.com and check out the amazing opportunities to work, near and far, because Andy, the
world's a small place. You got to see it.
That's awesome. Thanks, Chris. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you to our listeners. Tune in again next time.
This has been The Turn. Every episode is available on Troon.com. Subscribe to The Turn podcast through iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, or wherever you prefer to download your favorite shows.